Hello and welcome to Toasty's 2 Cents, the series where I play games off camera and then review them in a video. Today we're going to be talking about Pokémon Legends Arceus. So this is a game I got very invested in, as you can tell by the title. I basically decided about a few hours in that I liked it so much I wanted to complete the Pokédex, which means you have to catch every Pokémon and then reach research level 10 on every Pokémon in the game. There's 200 something. I'll put the number on the screen or I'll show something that tells you how many there are. It's a lot of Pokemon, let's just put it that way, and I decided I wanted to just, get the whole experience, completing that Pokédex, and it took me 87 hours, which is no small potatoes for any given playthrough. I mean, on average, it's like 40-50 hours I spend on a playthrough. I mean, it depends on the game, obviously, but like 40 to 50 hours is like a pretty sizable playthrough, but like, that's normal. 87 hours is big. That's a long time to spend on a single game. I had a lot of fun, honestly. I really did enjoy this. It was 87 hours, but honestly, it didn't feel like it was dragging on for that long because there was so much to accomplish, and it was a really fun game. I still feel like there's a lot I could have done that I didn't bother doing, so like, even then, I could have gone further with it, but I just chose not to. Once the Pokédex was done, I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna throw in the towel. I think I've had my fill. My tummy is full. I've had a good meal, but I'm ready to move on, but, it was a really fun game, and we're gonna get into the pros and cons of it and all that here now. Also, just a quick rundown of, like, my experience with Pokemon games. I actually haven't played through and beaten a Pokemon game in my life. When I was like a lot younger, like when I was a kid, I was into Pokemon for a few years, but then that was a phase I kind of grew out of, and eventually I just stopped caring about Pokemon, and now that I'm an adult, I'm like back into Pokemon, and this game especially has gotten me really interested in the franchise again, so I'm probably going to be playing a lot more of the games. I've played other Pokemon games and not remembered anything about them. This is the first one I've actually beaten. So let's get into the pros. The first thing that I noticed right off the bat was that they did a good job of explaining the basics of Pokemon, like, from the beginning, like the basics of the world, like everything down to like the most simple shit that like Pokemon fanatics would be like, scoffing at, like, dude, why are they explaining this? Like a newborn baby knows what a Pokemon is or how you catch one. Some people who are like maybe new to the franchise, they don't know what a Pokemon is. They just bought this game or they got it as a present and they're like, hey, I don't know what this is. Let me just play the game, and they don't know anything. They did a really good job of explaining how like it all works. Like there was that little tutorial phase where like they'll explain to you what a Pokemon is, and they'll explain to you how to catch them, and kind of the basics of like the world, because there's a lot of like world building and stuff that goes into this. There's a whole fucking like thing surrounding it, like lore wise, and they did a good job of introducing the player to it. I have enough knowledge on Pokemon where like they explained a lot of shit and I'm like, yeah, I know. You could even skip through certain parts of it if you already had a good amount of knowledge about Pokemon, but like if you're someone who's brand new to Pokemon, you're not going to be too intimidated, I don't think, because they do a good job of like walking you through it, holding your hand as you go through the tutorial, explaining everything you need to know before you're out there in the wild catching Pokemon, and I think that's awesome. Alright, now let's talk about the lost and found mechanic, because that is probably the most wholesome thing I've seen in a video game in a long time. So basically when you get knocked out, because you do take damage in this game, basically what happens if you take too many hits from Pokemon in the wild, or if you take too much fall damage, or a combination of both, what happens is that you basically black out, and then you wake up at the base camp and apparently someone rescued you. I don't know who rescued me, but that happens, and then you lose a certain amount of items from your satchel. But basically the lore behind that is that your satchel gets missing, and some of your items, like at random, will go missing along with that satchel. There's a system in place where like other players, I think it's players in your vicinity, or it's just players, I don't know what players are like near, because like, I don't know. I know it's like an online thing. I don't know how it decides which players you're like linked up with. I don't think it's players on your friends list either. I think it's just other players who happen to be playing the game in your like fucking 60-mile radius, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, basically what happens is that other players can find your satchel off the ground and send it back to you, and you'll get your lost items back. And I think that's just really fucking wholesome. You can like help out other players who are also playing through the game, and I think that's just really sweet. It just, put a big smile on my face, the fact that that mechanic even existed. I ended up using it a lot just to like, go find other satchels, because you do get merit points for finding satchels, and you can use those merit points to buy like certain items that you might need to use later on in the game, like level up items and shit, because certain items you need to like evolve certain Pokemon, and the only way to get that item is to either find it in the wild or buy it from the merit point shop. So sometimes it can be helpful to buy it with merit points, and I did do that a couple times because it was easier. So yeah, it's a really good mechanic that helps out everybody, and it's just really wholesome. However, my only complaint is that I didn't have anyone find any of my lost satchels throughout my entire playthrough. 87 hours and not a single lost satchel was returned to me. And look, I'm not sad, okay? I'm a big guy. I'm a big, strong, manly man, okay? I'm a tough guy. I can handle it. I didn't cry myself to sleep that night when I lost like 5 satchels and didn't get any back. I'm gonna move on to the next thing on the list now. The item sorting mechanic in the satchel, where you kind of just press a button and it just sorts everything by, like, what it is, that is so fucking handy. I swear to God. I mean, I'm one of those gamers who, like, everything has to be organized. I'm not gonna be able to find anything if it's not super hyper organized. Even in real life, I keep my, like, fucking apartment super organized. Like, everything has to be in its specific place. So I think the fact that, like, there's a mechanic in the game where you can just sort everything by type and just, you know, be done with it. You don't even have to manually do it. It saves so much time. And honestly, if that didn't exist, I probably would spend a lot of time like manually sorting my satchel, trying to get everything in order. So the fact that there's a thing for it, like a button for it, is so nice. It's actually so fucking hype. It's a little thing that was probably easy for them to implement, but like it's such a game changer, honestly. Another small thing that I really liked is that when you do battles in like the story mode, the Pokemon are often healed for free. Like you'll fight another NPC who's one of your friends, and then your friend will like heal your Pokemon for you after the battle. So you don't have to worry about spending all those items or like going to sleep or anything. I think that's really fucking awesome. That's just another small thing where it's like, dude, awesome. I love that. I love that I don't have to use like 500 fucking potions to heal up all my Pokemon after that battle. You know, since I spent like 87 hours completing the Pokédex, I think it's obvious that I spent a lot of time interacting with it, and I can say that I am very happy with like the mechanics of how it all works. You know, you can sort the Pokemon by a bunch of different ways, like by what fucking area they came from, or you can sort them by number. At the very end, I was sorting by number to figure out exactly which ones I was missing, so that was really helpful. Something else it'll even do is it'll tell you how many Pokemon you have left to catch in each of the different regions, or the different areas. I don't know what they're called. It'll tell you, like, you have this many out of this total amount of Pokemon in the Alabaster Icelands, or in the Obsidian Fieldlands, you're missing 2. You're missing 4 in the Crimson Mirelands. Like, it'll tell you in specific, like, how many you have in each region, and you can, like, organize it that way. Just the way the Pokédex is organized is really nice and really, like, user-friendly. I really found it easy to work with when I was, like, going through, like, finishing the Pokédex. It was really good and really well done, and I'm very happy about that because I had to work with the Pokédex a lot. That goes a long way, you know, because it was such an important part of the playthrough for me. So if you've been watching my channel for a while, you'll know that I am horrible at navigating in video games. I'm like the Roronoa Zoro of YouTube gaming because I will literally get lost in any situation. It doesn't matter how many maps you give me, how many directions you give me, I will get lost and you will not find me again. I get lost in video games so fucking easily. It's almost frustrating, honestly, just because I'm so bad at it. I can't tell you how many times in games I'll be just wandering around for like 5-10 minutes trying to find one little area because I can't read the map properly or the map isn't that easy to read, so like it's a pain. However, I am happy to say that with Pokémon Legends Arceus, it was so easy to read the map, and it was very easy to navigate this world. Can we get a round of applause for Pokémon Legends Arceus, because it actually had, like, a map I could actually navigate without getting lost all the time. It was awesome. I felt so good about myself when I didn't get lost, like, every day of my playthrough. It was so great. Now, I will admit, there were maybe, like, a couple times where I got a little lost, but it never, like, was that big of a deal, and I maybe only got lost like 5 times max throughout the entire playthrough, which honestly for me is like very, very good. Normally I'll get lost all the fucking time in these playthroughs, but in this game in particular, they did a great job of like making the map easy to read. You knew where everything was. I think part of it is that in general, the map is kind of flat. So I mean, like, if it's flat, it's easy to navigate. There were some parts that were like elevated, and I guess that's where I start to trip up as far as like finding places, but still, it was a more open world kind of game. So like it was, you know, easier to find places. It was really good. And I had a really good experience like navigating this game compared to other games. Like, it was really good. Yeah, I'd say one of the biggest things about this game in general is that there's so much to do. So much to do. I said this earlier, but even though I spent 87 hours on the game, there was still plenty of stuff I could have done. Like, there were like Paths of Solitude, like with side quests I didn't do. There was a lot of battles with other NPCs, or I don't know why I said other NPCs. I'm not an NPC. I don't know why I said that. I'm not. It sounds like I just accidentally exposed expose myself as being an NPC. I'm not an NPC, I swear to God. Don't clip that. I'm not an NPC. You can battle NPCs and stuff, which I did a little bit of, but not really. There's like a lot of shit you can do, even after completing the Pokédex, and I think that's awesome. You can even like go further in the Pokédex after, like, the max research level for each Pokemon is 10, but you can even research them beyond that, and I think you do get rewards for that. Like, I think by the time I ended my playthrough, I was probably like 9th star. You could have gotten yourself to 10 star if you kept researching the Pokemon even further, and that's something you could have pursued if you wanted to. I didn't bother, but like, you know, there's a lot you can do. There's so much to do. The thing is, you don't even have to invest that much time in this game to enjoy it. I think if you had spent 20 hours on this game, you could have had a really good experience. You spend 50 hours, you still get a really good experience. You spend 80 hours like I did, you get a really good experience. You give it at least 10-20 hours, just complete like the main story at least. I think you're gonna have a great experience with this game, even if you don't decide you want to like beat the whole thing or like, you know, go all in, no matter how much time you choose to invest. It's a really fun game to play through, and I really enjoyed it. All right, now let's get into the cons, and by cons I mean insignificant things. I don't think there's a single con on this list that actually matters. I think every single thing I wrote down was really small and stupid, but I'm just gonna start going off one by one, every single one that every little gripe I have with the game, even though none of them really matter. So I found the inventory space thing to be a little annoying. I mean, I guess once you get used to it, it's not as big of a deal, but like, I guess I'm the kind of player who likes to store a lot of different items. I found myself like having a bit of trouble. To be fair, there is a way to like upgrade the storage, you know, by talking to that guy who will teach you how to fit items in your satchel even more, and you pay him. But the thing is that you can only upgrade the satchel like one slot at a time, which is very tedious. I found it a very tedious process to upgrade the satchel because you could only do one slot at a time. I feel like there should have been an option to like get 5 of them at once or something, you know what I mean? So like that way it'd be faster. But no, you had to just keep talking to the NPC over and over again to get like one extra slot and then keep doing that over and over again. It was kind of time consuming. There are a few things in this game that I thought were a little tedious, and I'll talk about even more of them later, but you know, that was a little tedious. Not a big thing, but I definitely thought like they should have had some way of making you upgrade the satchel in a bigger way. So Pokemon Legends Arceus has a major case of same face syndrome. This is like a big thing in games and in anime even, where like a lot of characters will have like the same face, and it's kind of a funny thing to see. I know in Genshin Impact it's a big thing as well, where like there's this one like I think enemy in the Fatui who looks exactly like Catherine from the Adventurers Guild, and people make memes about it all the time because of how fucking funny it is that like a lot of the characters have the same fucking face, and like for whatever reason they don't try that hard to change it. Pokemon Legends Arceus I think has even worse same face syndrome than Genshin Impact does. Like I swear to God, there were maybe 10 different faces I saw in this game max, if we're talking NPCs. I don't know. It just felt like so many NPCs looked super similar, and honestly it's easy to ignore and it's not that big of a deal, but like, dude, it was insane. Like these characters all had like the same fucking face. It felt like it was insane. It was funny and not that big of a deal honestly, but I feel like they could have put a little more effort into, you know, maybe making the NPCs look different from each other. You know, just because they have a slightly different hairstyle and a different outfit doesn't mean they don't look the same. They still look the same. Like I don't know what they could have done, to be fair. I'm not like an expert on, you know, game art and shit, but like, you know, I feel like they could have done a little better in making the characters look a little different, but at the end of the day, not that big of a deal. The most important NPCs, I think, all were very drastically different from each other. Like Komodo and, you know, the leaders of the clans, I think they looked different enough where that was good enough. But I'm talking like the side character NPCs that you'll only like talk with on occasion. A lot of them looked very similar to each other. So earlier I talked about the mechanic for sorting the satchel and how helpful that was. I think there should have been a similar thing, but for the Pokemon pastures, because I felt like it was very annoying, because like sometimes you'll need a certain Pokemon for a certain quest, and you'll know that you have it, but it's just somewhere in the pastures, and by the time, I never like maxed out the pastures, but like, I think I got to like 22 or 23 on the pasture list, and like all of them were full. Like, I had almost, like, 24 pastures full of Pokemon. And although you can, like, manually search for each Pokemon and, like, kind of scroll through and it'll help you, I feel like it would have been a lot better if you could, like, press a button to sort the pastures by what type of Pokemon they are. So, like, all the Bidoofs are in one place, all the Pikachus are in one place, that kind of thing. It kind of makes sense why it isn't a thing, because when sorting a satchel, it's, like, you know, items. So it makes sense why you'd be able to quick sort them, but Pokemon are, like, living creatures, so being able to quick sort them doesn't make as much sense canonically than sorting the satchel. You can't really just move Pokemon around like that because they're alive, but then again, I don't know. Maybe it would make sense and I'm just being crazy. But yeah, it would have been helpful if there was some way of making it easier to search through the pastures. I know they tried to make it easy, but like literally if you could just press a button to sort the pastures by what Pokemon they are, like, and just, like, move all the Pokemon around, that would have been better. There were quite a few requests that required you to be in a certain region where they didn't tell you that. So you had to kind of, like, play that guessing game of, like, you know, what region do I need to go to? I ended up using, like, online guides a lot for a lot of these different requests and shit. It was kind of hard to tell where to go or what you need to do. I feel like they could have been a little more specific. I get that there has to be a bit of a challenge to it, you know, because it makes it more fun, but, like, I don't know. I feel like sometimes they'd be like, oh, they wouldn't tell you, like, whether you have to go to the fucking Cornet Highlands or the Alabaster Icelands or the fucking Obsidian Fieldlands. Like, they don't tell you where to go, and you have to kind of guess, and it's kind of annoying. I feel like the least you could do, okay, was tell me, like, which area I have to teleport to. When I exit Jubilife Village, I just want to know where I need to go for the request, okay? Which of those regions do I need to go to, okay? That's enough information for me to be satisfied, but they wouldn't even give you that at some points, depending on what request it was, and I feel like they could have done me a solid and, you know, give me that information at least. Okay, then this is something I wrote down at the beginning and kind of changed my mind on later. When I was first introduced to, like, Braviary and actually, like, flying with Braviary, I didn't like the mechanics, but as the game went on, I got used to it a little more and started using it more. I actually grew to kind of tolerate Braviary's mechanics a bit. I still don't think they're great, I'll say that. However, I don't think they're god-awful, you know? I feel like they could have been a lot better. I think it was, like, a really hard mechanic to get used to, like, the controls and shit for Braviary. I had a hard time getting used to it, but once I got used to it, I was like, it's not as bad as I thought it was, but it still could be better. I don't know how it could have been better, but I feel like it was just kind of hard to fly Braviary in general, and it kind of kept me from flying with Braviary for a while because I didn't like the mechanics at all. The process for getting, like, high friendship for different Pokemon, which is actually required for certain evolutions, that process is really tedious, and I honestly didn't like it because there was a lot of guesswork that had to come with it. I mean, I guess you could talk to that NPC who will tell you, like, in vague terms, like, how friendly the Pokemon is with you, but I swear to God, half the time it was like, does this Pokemon love me, or does it want to kill me in my sleep? And you never fucking know. You never know if the Pokemon likes you. You just have to keep, like, putting it in battle and collecting things with it, you know, in the wild. It was honestly a pain. I'm gonna be real. It was a pain to fucking deal with the high friendship thing, especially since there was no real, like, reliable way of knowing how close you were to being high friendship with that Pokemon. You just kind of had to YOLO and see what happens. It was just, it felt very tedious. I'm not, like, mad that the friendship system thing exists. I just wish it was kind of easier to, like, tell how friendly the Pokemon is with you. Alright, my final major complaint, Enamorus. Catching Enamorus was far and away the hardest thing I had to do in this entire game, okay? I fought Arceus at the end of the fucking game, and, like, you know, that was not even as hard as catching Enamorus. Catching Enamorus was actually fucking horrible. I made a community post, like, ranting about it back when I was trying to catch it. I think I said something like, trying to catch Enamorus is worse than getting a lobotomy while you're still awake. Like, catching Enamorus is more of a headache than that. I think that's what I said, and that still stands, because that was horrible. I did eventually catch Enamorus, but it was such a pain in the ass. I must have died like 10-15 times trying to fucking catch that thing. I lost so many satchels, so many items. I eventually had to dump all my items in the chest and just go out there with 5 Pokeballs into Dream because I just kept losing items for no reason. It was a horrible thing. It was way too hard to catch it, okay? It's not that I'm like, you know, skill issue, you know, like this guy he's just salty because he couldn't catch a Pokemon, but like I'm telling you, man, this Pokemon was so much harder to catch than like any other Pokemon in the game. Like, any other Pokemon in the game. I get that it's a legendary Pokemon and all that. It's, like, a hard one. But, like even catching some of the other ones, like, you know, like Thundurus, for example, and the other ones, I forgot their names off the top of my head. I'm sorry. I'm a fake fan, I know. Even those ones, they were a bit challenging, but I think they were reasonably challenging. Enamorus was so much harder than every other Pokemon. Even Arceus was easier to catch. Even Dialga was easier to catch. Palkia, all easier to catch than Enamorus, and I feel like that just makes no sense to me. Enamorus was so fucking hard to catch for no reason. It should have been so much easier. I'm not complaining because it was hard to catch. I'm complaining because it was, like, so much harder to catch than everything else in the game. Like, it was just on another fucking level. Okay, so I have a problem where I kind of look into the lore of things a little too deeply, and I think about it too hard. That might be a problem, you know? I don't know. But I feel like I still don't really understand after, like, playing through the game why my character was chosen. Like, in my eyes, like, my character's just a random-ass kid who was chosen by a legendary Pokemon to do this crazy quest. And I don't know, my fucking reptile brain can't comprehend why a random kid would have been chosen. Like, is there any special reason why he specifically was chosen and not anybody else? I don't know. I think it's just like, dude, you're looking into it too deeply. Like, just stop thinking about it. But I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm just thinking into it too deeply. I don't know. I guess they never really. I was expecting them to kind of explain like there's some grand fucking reason why I was chosen, you know? But it's just like, no, you were chosen because fuck you, that's why. You were chosen. Deal with it. Like, you know, there's no reason for it. You were just chosen, you know? Be happy. And I just can't help but wonder why. You know, why was I chosen? Why was my character chosen? Just some random kid. You know, he didn't seem like anyone special other than, like, you know, it seemed like he came from another world where he knew more about Pokemon. That's, like, the only thing he had. But, like, there are plenty of other kids in that universe who would have also been the same way. So why him? But then again, maybe I'm looking into the lore too deeply. I'm not even putting this down as a con. It's just more of an observation that falls in between. Oh, I have a feeling this is going to be a long video. I've been talking for almost half an hour, which I almost never do for Toasty's 2 cents. Like, this is crazy. I had a lot to talk about with this game. I had a great time with this game. It got me really into Pokemon for a while, and I want to play more of the games. I have a couple other Pokemon games that I'm planning on playing through in the near future. I don't know when, but, like, I'm just really invested in Pokemon now. This game got me, like, you know, into the franchise, hook, line, and sinker. It's really fun. It's a really good game. I was really into it for a long time, and it was really fun. I had a lot of fun with it, and honestly, it's one of the best games I've played in a while. I can't really compare it to other Pokemon games because I don't have anything to compare it to, but as far as, like, games go in general, I thought it was a really fun one, and I had a great time with it, and I really enjoyed it. Would absolutely recommend it. You know, I was torn up for a while on what to rate this game out of 100 on my Toasty the Meter. I don't know what to call it. Toasty the Meter. Meter the Waffle. Toasty Meter. Rotten Toasty Tomatoes. I don't know what to call it. I decided I'm going to give it a 90. On my rating scale. I think it deserves a 90, honestly. I know that might be kind of generous. Some people are going to be like, Toasty, it's not that good. Why are you giving it a 90? I just really loved it. If I could spend 87 hours on a game and not feel like it was dragging on forever the entire time, I feel like that's just... I mean, I wasn't really getting tired of it until, like, maybe hour 80. So, like, that tells you a lot about, like, you know what, this was a great game. Like, I had so much fun with it. So, it's really good. If I could spend that much time on a game and, like, enjoy it the whole way through, I think it deserves a 90. I think it's really fucking fun. Not to mention that this is the game that's gotten me, like, back into Pokemon. I haven't been into Pokemon since I was a kid. And now I'm, like, really invested again, and I'm really excited to play more Pokemon games in the future, so it's really fun, and yeah, I had a great time with this game. You know, completing the Pokédex was a really fun experience, and honestly, very awesome game. I keep repeating the same shit, but it was just fucking awesome. I'm so glad I played this. Well, yeah, that's Toasty's 2 cents. Like, subscribe, and keep vibing.